We're just an American family with no ties to the government, and they are not going to tell us what they are doing. Once again, I have to hope that they're doing whatever they can.
That is Elaine Weinstein, the wife, sadly now the widow of Warren Weinstein. Elaine appeared on the Steele and Ungar radio show on Sirius XM radio a year ago. And of course, yesterday, the president just announced the news that Warren Weinstein was killed inadvertently in a counter-terror strike along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. That happened in January. The president officially announced it to the American people yesterday. It's worth noting that Warren Weinstein's death comes after years of captivity and several entreaties from his family to free him. And his death brings up some serious questions about the effectiveness of using drone strikes to take out terror targets. We just heard Claire Lopez, before the break, talk about the need for human intelligence, people on the ground. Joining us now for more on this story, our good friend Rick Ungar, senior political contributor for Forbes.com, and here at Newsmax TV, the co-host of the Daily Wrap. Really appreciate your time, Rick. Thanks very much.
Good to see you, JD. How's it going?
It's going okay, but it was really tough to hear those words from Elaine Weinstein and the real human toll of this fratricide. It's one thing to say we understand that there will be incidents like this in war. It's another thing to hear from a family member.
Well, look,
ahead,
it's clearly tragic. I think you know that I had the opportunity to interview Elaine on my radio program back in August. The irony is terrible. I mean, she was so concerned about what she was saying because she didn't want to say something that might push the wrong buttons with her husband's captors. And ironically, it turns out that we ended up killing the poor man. It's just a terrible thing.
What was your reaction to the timing and the content of the president's announcement from the White House press room yesterday?
Well, from what I've been able to find out, the timing was all tied to confirmation. They really didn't have confirmation until, I'm told, the day before yesterday. In terms of the content, I think he did the best you can do under such a bad circumstance. Look, mistakes, as horrible as this is, mistakes happen in these situations, and this was obviously a really bad one. But I think he took responsibility, as he should, and said what he could say. What do you say?
Well, what's curious to me, Rick, and of course we interrupted programming here on Newsmax TV for live coverage, when you read the complete release from the White House, it talked about the killing of 2 American citizens who, in essence, were traitors who had gone over to Al-Qaeda. That is something that, while it's the subject of debate in our society, Rick, I think a lot of people would expect the commander-in-chief to say, despite the cost of an American innocent life, we took out 2 traitors. Why did he choose to avoid that?
I can understand why he did. I mean, he could have done that and curried favor, but I think at that point, I think his real thoughts were on the Weinstein family and didn't want to say, hey, guess what? We sacrificed your father, your husband, but we got 2 bad guys in his place. I think he probably showed good judgment and good taste there. Look, you and I are talking about the fact that we took out 2 bad guys, and I'm sure we agree that we're both happy about that. I actually thought it was the right tone. I think it would have played very badly if he had talked about that.
Well, and this is really not trying to score political points here, just in terms of the seriousness of the conflict against the enemies we face. I know there is a political debate here in this country. There are some who say no American citizens should be deprived of due process no matter their circumstance, when a lot of us say, wait a minute, you go to the other side, you're an enemy combatant, and you're fair game. Was it controversy as well as, you put it, good taste that prompted the president to avoid the topic?
I don't think so. Look, I mean, we have had that conversation. I know where I come down on it. I think we just need a very small change in our procedures. They are perfectly within their rights if somebody has been indicted as Adam Gadon had been. So there was no controversy there. He had been indicted. If he can't be captured, he can be killed like any other American right here in the US of A. It gets a little bit touchy when due process hasn't been extended to where there's been, a hearing to determine if charges should be filed. If it were up to me, what I would argue in these cases, and we saw it before, of course, with Al-Awlaki, I think you need to get a court order before you can go kill an American without due process overseas, which we do. The trick, though, is there's nobody representing that potential victim, if you will, at that court hearing. This is how I would solve it. Have somebody at that hearing speaking up for the person that we've got our eyes on targeting. If you do that, I think it makes a really big difference. There is a due process aspect to that. Somebody is standing up for them. If the judge then still issues an approval that, yep, if you can't capture this guy, do what you got to do, I think it takes some of the due process sting away from it. I'd be in favor of that.
Now, in terms of process in this White House, we were told prior to the 2012 election, when a lot of drone strikes were being carried out under Mr. Obama as commander-in-chief, the story for the press was that he personally reviewed all of these cases. In the wake of the admission yesterday, the folks going on background from the White House said, oh, no, the president did not directly authorize this attack. Which is it?
I don't know. How could I possibly know? Look, I don't know if he reviews them all or if he doesn't. Quite frankly, I can't imagine why it would matter. I think if you or I were, God forbid, sitting in that chair, and you have a location like that where intelligence is telling you you've got some very high value bad guys, you're probably going to do it. Obviously, something went wrong in terms of the intelligence gathering, but we'd probably have done the same thing. So whether or not he would have approved it or not, I don't think we would have known with any other surety that those two hostages were there. So, to me, that really does start to get into the political chatter, because you got to ask yourself the question, what would you have done? I know what I would have done. You think you got high-value al-Qaeda targets? I'm going to hit them.
So basically you're saying the story we were getting in 2012 was by and large for political consumption.
I'm not saying that. I don't know. I honestly don't. And I don't know if circumstances changed. That was 2012. This is a couple years later. I just don't know. I couldn't possibly tell you.
To people of good faith seeking solutions, you offered this notion of due process in absentia for accused enemy combatants. We call it. Do you expect the administration to take some steps now to set up those kind of provisions?
Well, I don't know. I was recommending this after we went through the last round of this with Al-Awlaki. Quite honestly, I did not have a problem with us taking this guy out. This guy meant us harm. But I did understand the arguments that were being made. I'm a lawyer. I get it. So to me, you add this step, and I think you go a long way to solve this problem. I think the White House should consider it. Don't know if they ever have. They haven't called me to tell me, but I'd like to see them do that. If one of the good things that can come out of this horrible event is something like that, if they do begin to see, all right, we should go through that, then great. But you know what? We don't have that situation in this case, which is, I think, why you didn't hear him talking about it. The key person that we got among the bad guys had been indicted before. So it's a whole different ballgame.
Understood,
than when you have
Rick.
somebody who has.
And on that note, we will thank you for your time from Newsmax New York. Hey, big news next week. We are shifting to prime time. I'll tell you about that and the new name of the show when we get back.